Good morning everyone, my name is Mridul and today we're going to look at Lab 1. So, I'm going to show you how to install VMware vSphere Graphical User Interface, that is a VMware vSphere client. The vSphere client is an interface for administering vCenter server and ESXi hosts. It is a user interface and is configured based on the server to which it is connected. The main function of the vSphere client is for infrastructure configuration and day-to-day operations. So what we are going to do in lab 1 is install the vSphere client, and for this you need the VMware vSphere software installed on the client machine. So since the software is actually in a zip state, you click on it. You can see that it's extracting. You click on next. You can see the welcome screen. Click on next again. It shows you the default location. You click on next again, you start the install, and you can finally see that the VMware vSphere client has been installed properly. Click on finish, and now you can log into the vSphere client using by double clicking on this and logging into it using the host name that you gave earlier, and using the root and the root as the username which I gave earlier, and the password as password. And that's how you actually log into the VMware vSphere. Now we are going to look at lab 26. That is, in lab 26 we look at how to install VMware vCenter server components. So these are the VMware vCenter server components. We need to install vCenter single sign-on, the VMware vSphere web client, the inventory service, and the vCenter server. So, vCenter Server is a centralized platform for managing all the VMware vSphere environments like the ESXi host, the clusters, the virtual machines, the virtual machine templates, the replication, and high availability, including high availability. It is a centralized visibility, proactive management, and extensibility for VMware vSphere from a single console. The main purpose of the VMware vCenter is to manage virtual machines and ESXi hosts centrally. The vCenter server is a vSphere component which is mostly used in the large environment where there are many ESXi servers and dozens of virtual machines. The vCenter server is also accessed by vSphere client for management purpose. Now this actually can be installed on Windows OS as well as Linux-based operating systems. Now I'll demonstrate how to install vCenter 5.5 single sign-on components in the Windows Server 2012 R2 base. So we're going to install single sign-on, the web client, inventory, the vCenter server, as well as the update manager. So there are several prerequisites that need to be done before we install this. Now that is, we need to download VMware vCenter server software. You also need a Windows Server 2012 R2, and it should be connected to the domain. We also need .NET 3.5 that's been installed in the earlier labs. So we click on this thing, and we click on the simple install. It's a pretty straightforward process. Click on Next. It installs all the prerequisites needed for this, such as TLS and several other softwares. Only then will it start installing all these web client, SSO, etc. If any problem occurs in the prerequisite installation, this whole setup fails. So we click on Next. You join it to the host name, and we can see that it's been successful. You give a name for the host. Click on Next. You can see it, you give the host name, the port name as default, the port number as default. Click on Next. You click on, we give the location as default, and click on Next. You can see a summary of the default posts. Click on Next and complete. And thus we have completed the VMware vCenter server installation, and now we need to install the install the VMware machine, and we'll be looking at that in the next lab. So let's go ahead and install the VMware machine. Hey everyone, today we're going to look at how to do lab 3. So lab 3 actually deals with installing a VMware machine. So for that, to create a VMware machine. So what is a VMware machine? VMware machine or a virtual machine consists of a bunch of files that is stored on a supported storage device. The key file that creates a VM is a configuration file, the virtual disk file, NVRAM setting file, and log file. A VM is typically a software computer that acts as a physical machine and runs with the OS and its applications. Each VM has a virtual device that gives the exact functionality as a physical hardware and also additional features in terms of portability, security, and manageability. Now for Lab 3, we need to create a VM, install a guest OS on the VM. We also need to identify the virtual machine disk format and its usage statistics. We install the tools on the VM with Windows OS. So before we start, we need our ESXi hostname and the root password. The virtual machine data source should be ready because we need to link it with this. The guest OS, that is Windows 8, that we are going to use. And we need it mounted on the Windows ISO that is mounted on the CD drive. So we log into the VMware vSphere client using the root username as root and password as a default password that we gave. Click on Nets and it logs in, and you can see that it's connected to our host. So now we right click on the ESXi host on the inventory and select new virtual machine because we need to create a new virtual machine. Now you need to set the in options you need to set the configuration as custom. When custom comes up, we give custom because we have to configure several things like the number of CPUs, the memory, the network card that we need to use, amount of storage that we need, etc. So here we're going to configure all those things. Give the name for the VMware machine, that is VMware VM00. Storage, we're going to connect it to our data store. We're going to use the virtual machine version number sets. We're going to give the CPUs, memories, networks, etc. like that. We can finally see a summary of what all we have configured, and we click on finish. Now we can see that our VMware is successfully up and running, and now we can actually see a summary by right clicking on it and clicking on edit settings to see what we have configured so far. So here we can see that we have given VMware with a memory of 1 GB, 1 CPU, video card, CD drives, network card, hard disk, etc. So we have successfully configured VM on the machine. Next, we actually mount the machine and install Windows 8 on it, and we have successfully completed Lab 3 of our project.